Welcome to my podcast, Today's Dream, Tomorrow's Reality. My name is Vicki Poole. I'm a master transformational coach and hypnotist specializing in habit change. This podcast is sponsored by the Enlightened Peach, and it's all about embracing our mosaic life. And some of you may ask, what is a mosaic life anyway? Well, it is recognizing that all the pieces of our life, the good, the bad, the indifferent, have all come together to make us who we are. Change any one thing, and we are different. With that in mind, I invite you to embrace your perceived imperfections and celebrate who you are. This podcast is unedited and raw, just like life. And I am your host, and I have a special guest that I will introduce in just a moment. But before I would love if you could just do me a solid. And that means leave a comment, leave a question, and remember to like, subscribe, and share. So now let's get started. So this lovely lady here is Heather Mullen, and I believe we met in one of the groups because I tend to talk to a lot of people in groups, and I'm pretty sure that's where we were. But if not, correct me. The thing is that I was just amazed with your story, being a cancer survivor and then dedicating so much of yourself to helping other people to get through it a little bit easier with some extra knowledge and maybe not have as bad a result as they might have otherwise. So that was just amazing. And I do have a couple of friends who are coaches and hypnotists, and a couple of them are cancer coaches. And it's amazing because the ones that you really resonate with, or I do, if I were to need cancer coaching, is the ones that have been through it. And I know a few of them have not been through it. They are skilled in what they do, but there's just one thing. It's like you can get dieting advice from the skinny people, and it's like, but you can get dieting advice for someone that's lost a lot of weight and struggled with it for a long time, right? So to me, it's having that connection of, yes, they know what I'm going through. Is just amazing. So if you don't mind, I know I've just gave a little tidbit of what you're about, but if you don't mind, just go ahead and share just a touch about who you are, and then we'll get started knowing each other a little bit better. How's that sound?
Sounds great.
All right,
Sounds
beautiful.
well, thank you for having me, Vicky.
My pleasure.
And just to let you know, we met actually on the HCI alum
That's it.
page.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. Now I
You had
remember.
mentioned something about podcasting and I was
Yeah,
interested, so I responded. Yeah.
yeah,
That's
yeah, beautiful. Well, I'm glad you remember.
I remember that.
Okay, good, good.
Um, some of my story, I was diagnosed with stage 3 um, colorectal cancer in 2018. Um, and when that happened, I remember the day. I was by myself
Mm,
and I was actually picking up on my way to pick up a friend from work. And I I have routine colonoscopies I was having essentially yearly for another condition, GI condition that I've had my whole life. And I didn't think anything of it. I'd had my normal scope and I went into a Wawa, came out, got in my car and had a voicemail from my doctor telling me, Heather, it's cancer. We need to get on this now. So I
wow.
actually I was early to picking up my friend. So she worked in like a business park. So, and I say that for a reason because obviously in a business park, there's no nature really. It's just buildings and parking lots.
Hmm.
And I found this line of pine trees in the back area and I went and parked over there facing them. And I just sat there. I was just kind of in a space I don't even disbelief, and
Mm,
I wasn't afraid. I was just in disbelief. And I
right.
was sitting there and I had all this myriad of emotions going on. And then I started to get emotional and think of, all the things, the unknowns. Um, and it was in that moment, as I was really getting worked up, that this cardinal flew through, like, right past me and into the pine trees. And there was no wildlife or anything in this area where I was. So, and that is a symbol for me of my grandfather that passed. And right then and there, I received this message that, everything's going to be okay. And this is happening for you. And I took another 2 days before I told anybody. I just kind of sat with it. Just,
So
just
did that feel, um, what's the word? Did it feel like you were avoiding it, or did it feel like you were just not ready to share that part of your story?
I was processing. I was
Okay.
processing because what I felt that first day in those moments, with the cardinal and just with myself and just basically absorbing what I was told. Um, I just felt that I needed a couple days to just sit with it, digest it, and I would know when it was time to share with other people. So it wasn't that I was trying to pretend it didn't happen or that it wasn't real. I just needed to be in a certain space. I didn't know what that was
Yeah.
before I talked to them because I knew there was going to be a lot of emotions coming from them.
Right.
So I took those few days, and to this day, I'm so thankful I did. Um, but when I sat, at the time, it was my boyfriend, now he's my husband, but I sat my boyfriend and my parents down, and I just said, I need to talk to you guys. And of course, when someone tells you that,
It's
you're
like
thinking all the bad stuff. Like, but my boyfriend was only of 10 months, so he's thinking, why am I here and with
yeah,
her parents?
I
What
know.
is she
What
doing?
is she breaking up with me with them? Why is this? Yeah, that's
Exactly.
crazy.
So, but when I announced it to them, their faces, if I could have captured their faces, that would have been very funny. That's the only word I
Hmm.
could think of, because basically said to them, I just want to let you know my scope came back. It's cancer. I don't know what this is going to look like. I don't know what this journey is going to be, but it's happening for me and it's all going to be okay. And they all looked at me and looked at each other, and they didn't know what to do, because who announces it like that, right?
Right.
Um, and so, and in that moment too, I told my boyfriend, I was like, I have no idea what this journey is going to look like. So if you want to go, I completely understand. And without a second of thinking about it, he said, I'm not going anywhere. So, he stuck through it. And so my journey began then. And I had, went through chemo and radiation and surgery in the beginning of 2019, had complications from the surgery that, from January to October of that year of 2019, I couldn't sit. Could only lay on my side, because the issue that I was having was from the surgery and a scar that was in the seating area.
Mm.
For
Oh, that's such a
lack of
polite way
better-
of saying it, right?
I'll, you know,
Just call it what it is.
on my butt.
Yeah.
So, um, and then in October, I had a second surgery, and then I had to take a muscle out of my inner thigh to put in the area that had essentially abscessed, because the area was radiated, so it was dead tissue and it wasn't going to heal. So they had to put healthy tissue in there. So they did that, and when I woke up, complete surprise to everybody, doctors included, I was paralyzed. My leg did not work at all. Everyone
Wow.
was questioning why. No one to this day knows why. Um, and so I walked in the hospital and I was wheeled out of the hospital, and I was in a wheelchair for 6 months, went through a lot of physical therapy, was able to get back to walking. Um, and I always have to think, like, where I'm at in my
And your
story.
story?
right? Um, so after that, but because I was so immobile, um, the following year in 2020, um, from like January to June, I was hospitalized over 20 times for intestinal blockages. Um,
Wow.
then that resulted in another surgery at the end of June in 2020. That had complications, and I ended up in the hospital during COVID, 3 hours away from family and friends, for a month in the
Wow.
hospital. Yeah. Um, and just like a funny little aside there, when I was in the hospital, I learned because I'd already been doing a lot of meditation and mindfulness work throughout that first year. That was when I was introduced to it. So I was doing a lot of that, but when I was in the hospital room all by myself and
No
like
visitors.
everyone's coming in super masked as if like I have the plague. Um, I would actually like in the moments when I just felt lonely or sad or any kind of yucky emotion, I would sit up, look at the wall in front of me or out the window, and I would smile as wide as I could smile. And it sounds really silly,
No, it
but
doesn't.
you you can't smile and feel sad.
Right.
It's like biologically impossible. And I think I must have read it or something while I was sitting there for, and I'm like, I'm gonna try this.
Getting
This
in hospital university, right?
exactly. And it worked, so I kept doing it. But of course I kept thinking, one of these times the doctor or nurse is gonna walk in and be like, do we need to call psych? Like, what you doing? What you doing? But never happened, so that was good. But so yeah, so as I went through that month and then I was home. Um, and then I had just my routine cancer screening in November of 2020, and the cancer had metastasized to both of my lungs at that point. So then here I was back on the road again, um, and had double lung surgery the following February and went
Man.
through more chemo through 2021. And so since the end of August of 2021, I've been cancer free.
Nice.
So yay.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
You
and
almost got the frequent flyer miles at the hospital, didn't you?
I,
That's got to be extensive financially, no matter how good an insurance you have. Even if you only have to pay 10 or 20%, that's still got to be astronomical.
yes, but I had to look at it from a positive perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, I took care of my deductible in the first month of the year. I was I was done. You
Yeah,
know, whether that's a good thing or not, that was the positive I took from that piece, the financial piece of things, and it gave me that year to pay off the bills if needed, you
right.
know. So in when I was diagnosed, like going back a little bit in 2019, while I was bedridden essentially on my side, um, going along with that message of this is happening for you, I always knew that there was a greater purpose I was here to serve, but I couldn't ever figure out what that was. It
So
was
let me stop you a second. So what did you do professionally before all this happened?
I owned a marketing business
Okay.
for small, a small for small businesses.
Okay.
So when I say marketing, that can mean a lot of things. Me personally, I was building mobile apps for small businesses and
Mm-hmm.
was helping them like with email marketing and some social media stuff. But that was back when it was, I don't know, easier. Now it's completely above and over my head,
Yeah.
you know, how technology is. But yeah, that's what I was doing. And I had
Okay.
some salespeople that worked for me. And yeah.
Okay. Very cool. Very cool. Well, as you're talking about some of this stuff, I'm thinking, because you've said several times it's happened for me and not to me. And that's one of the things I teach in my Facebook group too, that no matter what, and I even talked about it this morning, if I'm remembering right, because I've had, I go in my group every day and do affirmations and journal prompts and everything. So sometimes I get confused which one I did because I do them every single day. But the thing that I wanted everybody to see is that when you look at the story of your life and you have this spot that you feel like was this amazing angst, this thing that went terribly wrong, or just didn't turn out the way you thought, or you misstepped and made a mistake, and all of those things, that the thing that happened to us happened for us, and that the big job is to, not big job, but the thing you want to extract from any of those things in your life is to go in and look at it with a different lens of, what did this teach me? How did this put me on a different road? And I think I had shared with you before that I've had so many people on my podcast that had some catastrophe happen, and they started doing something that they never would have dreamed of before, and so it's mind-boggling how that happens. And sometimes I wonder if because it's always, there's a little inkling, just a little bit inkling, maybe we're not happy where we are and we want to just kind of stretch out and figure out what we want to do, and maybe we don't pay attention to that, and then something has to happen to get us to focus in a different way. So I kind of look at the reason, to me it feels like it happened for us, is because that's the catalyst for changing our perspective and being open to what's available, what's there, and all the beautiful gifts that'll come from it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree completely. Yes.
yeah.
Go ahead.
So I was just going to say, when going back to you sitting in the car and where the trees were, and did you, when you were a lot younger, was nature the thing that you ended up going to when you needed a little
Oh,
comfort?
absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. See, me as well. The
Yes.
thing to me was, and when I was a teenager or early teens, we lived on a piece of property that had this big creek that went through it. And there was a tree that had fallen across the creek. So I would go sit there with my feet in the water. I'd write poetry and I'd write stories, and I'd just sit there and just, oh, this is so good. And to
Yes.
this day, you get me near the water, I may not want to get in the water, but being there, hearing the water, being outside in nature, it takes me back to this comfort spot in my soul. So you were dealing with so much, and it's so cool how our body just naturally knows, oh my gosh, find a friggin' tree.
Yep.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yep.
I love that. I love that. I really do. Oh gosh. So when you were, do you have children? I don't remember.
I don't. I
You
don't.
don't? Okay. So how long have you and your husband been married now?
Well, we were together 10 months when I was diagnosed. And so what's been 7 years, but
Okay.
we married, got married in the end of 2019.
Okay. For some reason, 2019 feels like it was just yesterday. It doesn't feel like it's so far
Yeah.
away. It's really hard to judge time these days. Um, and it's funny because this is very off topic, but so I had a client one day that was talking to me, and they said, this was one of those movies from the 1900s. I thought, that was when I was in high school. What are you talking about? Oh, it was the 1900s, but it sounded like it was like hundreds of years ago, right?
I
It was
know.
bizarre. It was bizarre.
I know. I know. Yeah. 1980 is like, I don't know. Was somebody mentioned that date in like 1980, and I'm like, oh my goodness. Like, what was that? Like 100 years ago? It's like,
Yeah, yeah. So,
wow.
how did you get into the energy work?
Well,
Or were you
like,
doing that already before?
no, no,
No?
when I was diagnosed, and then when I was after my first surgery, and I was having those complications and unable to sit and all that fun stuff, I was introduced through a family friend to someone who did energy work, did PMF therapy,
What is
and
PMF therapy?
post electromagnetic
Oh,
therapy.
okay. Okay.
Have you heard of that?
I've heard of the frequency therapies. And so I guess it's the similar thing, right?
Along those lines, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That would be for another day. It's
Yeah.
very
Yeah. We'll
cool,
talk
but
about that
if
next
you get
time.
me going on that, it'll be for a long time. So we'll go way off topic. But so I went to her essentially for my own healing. And
That's
I
how it always
had
starts.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I had such amazing results. It wasn't like it cured me, in an
Right. So
hour
what
kind
were
of
the
thing.
results that were so amazing?
Um, well, with the energy work, when someone's working on you, they're going around, they're working with your chakras, they're working with your energy, other
Mm-hmm.
energy centers and things of that nature. So they're they're it's hard. I'm trying to put into words. So it heals you. It's actually healing your emotions, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. So it's
Yeah.
it's pulling out different emotions that are stuck, and different emotions can get stuck in organs. There's
Right.
different emotions that gravitate towards different organs. So when they're working on you, when she would be working on me, she would go to certain areas, like for instance, my stomach. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what I obviously have and had a lot of issues. And when she was there, she would, different emotions would come up. And when I say emotions would come up, I would experience the emotion and she would feel the emotion as well. And she would actually have like questions and things that pop up and she would ask me, and that would kind of bring me into a space to work through whatever that emotion was. And in working through whatever the emotion was that popped up, it actually started the healing process physically.
Mm-hmm.
So you would just feel lighter, you would feel calmer, you would feel, you know, little less discomfort maybe in that area. And like I said, it's not as if it just was a one and done and you feel amazing and you're
Yeah.
good to go, but you had those experiences, you felt those things, and you came out with a better mindset too.
Yeah.
And the PMF therapy, because that's working with the frequencies of the earth, so it's essentially like, just to make it really short and sweet, if you go take your shoes off and walk outside, what you're actually getting from the earth is healing your cells.
Mm-hmm.
And so we don't really do that, anymore. We're not back in the whatever Stone Age where people walked around with barefoot and things like that. We wear shoes, we drive cars, we ride bikes. We're never on the ground. So our bodies, our cells are sluggish and not, when they're regenerating, they're not necessarily regenerating in a healthy state.
Right.
So when I was on the mat, it's something that's it's like consecutive, so you cumulative, excuse me. So you have to do it so many times because it's actually like the therapist told me, and it made total sense. She said, basically, you're on this mat, it's healing your cells, and it's going to take time because it's like you've created a web over the course of your life with things that have happened, feelings you've had, emotions you've had, experiences you've had, and it's all settled in and it's created this web. So now what this is going to do is unweave that web, but it's got to start from the outside in. So when I was on the mat, the first few times I didn't feel much of anything. I would feel like some discomfort here and there, just trace feelings of it, and
Mm-hmm.
that was apparently normal. But by the sixth session, I was laying there and I had like this horrible pain, I guess, from the surgery that was lingering. And all of a sudden I started to feel that pain again, and I hadn't felt that particular pain. And I said, "Oh my goodness, like I think this is doing something bad." And she said, "Just hang on, just wait." And I rode that out. And within a few minutes, it completely dissipated, and never came back again.
Nice.
So, um, that's what, you know, sold me, I guess you could say. I don't really like that word, but that was when I said, okay, this is working. This is good for me. And I mean, I've always gravitated towards more holistic and natural stuff anyway,
Yeah,
hence
me as well.
nature.
Yeah,
So,
and my mother got a grounding mat a
mm,
couple of years ago, and she does that all the time. Or my brother got it for her, I don't remember, but I like to go outside barefoot in the yard, and I like to hug the trees and be anywhere near the water, like I said earlier. Um, and so the thing that's interesting is years and years ago, when I was little, most everybody was walking barefoot outside, you know but over time it gets to where, and I look at it a lot of times, you'll see somebody with a newborn baby, and I've been guilty of it too, put shoes on them right off, right? And so now they're not only not on the ground, but they're constricting their feet and the way their muscles move, and there's so much about it that is so not the best.
right.
But when I was doing it with my kids, I had no idea that it was not really that good for them to just put them in the shoes and let them wear the shoes all day and all that stuff. But it's definitely grounding in your life and in your body is so amazing. And I even do with my hypnosis and everything, I do some visualizations where I have them visualize, the energy and everything going through their body, but then I have them the energy going outside their feet and creating roots into the core of
Mm,
the earth and do
yeah,
those different things. And there's not a person that doesn't come out of that and say, oh my gosh, I needed that.
yes.
So it'd be cool if we could all do that quite often. But it's not always that easy. And another thing that you mentioned was the getting the energy healing from your from I guess the mentor, whatever the heck you would call her,
Yeah, right.
um, practitioner, yes. And so the thing to me is that I had energy healing a few times. The thing
Mhm.
that amazed me about it was, and this might have been your experience too. I think that it's a collective experience. But I was laying, part of the time I was on my stomach, part of the time I was on my back. But the whole time I thought she was actually touching me.
Uh-huh.
But then later I found out that her hands were hovering above me, not touching me at all. But it was like I could feel her fingers. It was the most
Mm,
surreal thing to realize that I could feel her touch, even though she wasn't actually doing it.
right. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And on that note, what's interesting is I have experienced that as well.
Hmm.
But there have been times when, because there's different types of energy work and there's different, everyone does it differently,
Hmm.
right? So some are just strictly, Reiki and kind of do just work around your body and that kind of thing. Other things come up. And that was the case for this woman. And actually, it is the case for me as well. Once I started doing it, I have my own,
Hmm.
things that are, I guess, in addition to just the energy work. But
Hmm.
when there were times when I would experience that feeling, and yes, some of that time was energy from her that just made it as if, because our energies were connecting. So it
Right.
felt like she was touching me, but it was just our energy
Yeah.
connecting. But then there were also times that other, like, ancestors or people that have passed were there.
Hmm.
And that was part of what I was feeling.
Oh,
um
that's interesting.
yeah. and
Yeah.
and I when I've worked on people, things, I never did it with any expectations or that I had to do it like this person or like the person that taught me or like the person who worked on me. I just went into it and just was me and just did it. You know what I mean? And what it became for me was I actually get messages.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's a feeling, sometimes it's a word, sometimes it's a phrase, it's something, or I feel presence there or something. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I just simply work around the body and that's that. But I've had it where people have, like, I hear a word and I say the word and they feel a presence and that word matches that person's
Oh,
presence,
wow.
so there's interesting things. I don't know how we got on that topic, but
It
well,
doesn't matter. I told you, we just take this conversation wherever it takes us. We don't have an agenda. We just talk. So we're good. We're good. And, I love that because it is so expanding of your gifts and your talents and everything when you can release the expectation and you're just there to be this conduit, this channel to reach them. And there are times we do that with so many different things in our lives, and maybe we don't even realize that we're doing it then, but we do it quite often. And it's just getting in touch with recognizing when we do utilize those gifts and talents to reach people in a different way. It's beautiful.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. But back to, I think, your question or what we
Oh, heck,
were
I don't even remember what it was. What
going
was it?
towards, what got me into
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's it. That's
So, yeah, when I was hanging out on my side and just trying to, you know, again, just learn what it was, what it meant for what I was going through and what it meant that it was for me. And, I'd had people in my past tell me, you should be, I mean, several years past, before this, you should be a coach. You like make people feel comfortable. You just ask such interesting questions and this and that. And I'm like, oh, no, 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 that's not me. So as I'm laying here on my side for however many months, I, I thought, you know what, maybe, maybe that is what I okay, all right. And so that's when I looked up and found HCI and became certified within that next year with that. And it was also like that following year that I became certified as a integrated energy therapist, and also sound therapist, and then a PMF therapy practitioner. And that all just like once I realized coaching was where I needed to go, but I just went with it, and then the other pieces just kind of fell into place, because
yeah.
I was continuing to do those
Hmm.
energy, receiving that energy work and going and getting PMF and seeing the results. Because after my leg was paralyzed, the PMF mat is part of why I can walk.
Okay.
So I kept doing those things, and then I would just get to a point where whether it just felt like that's where I was being drawn to, or whether I heard a message or something that was guiding me, I knew, okay, I need to get certified in this. This is going to be part of what I offer, how I help
Yeah.
people, to share what has helped me.
Yeah. Well, I applaud you because that's an amazing, amazing thing to have to go through to get to this beautiful place. But, I'm grateful that you experienced it and you've come out on the other side in such a beautiful way. So let me go back to when you were little. You said that you liked being around nature and that kind of stuff. When you were really little, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be five things. I
Okay.
was good at all of them.
Okay.
Hopefully I remember them all. An architect, a veterinarian, a dancer, a marine biologist, and an artist.
All right. Well, they all go together, right?
Sure. I am an artist, but I never became like as my career kind of artist, but I never went after the other before.
Yeah, I kind of feel like when we're really young, we watch a movie or see something and it's like, that's what I want to be. So it really doesn't have any basis on what we're really love and what our gifts and talents are, right? But I'm really grateful that you found your gifts and talents because just wanting to be those few things, they were all a type of service base in a way, right? They're helping other people, whether that's seeing your art or moving into a building that you've designed, so many different things, right? So you had this heart when you were really little. It just didn't translate like you thought it would back then,
Right,
right? Yeah,
right,
yeah. And so to me, I love when we can look at the things about our lives and we can start seeing our gifts and talents and how they began and how they kind of intersect and things put us on a different trajectory and all these different things that go around in our minds. And then if we can just let it go and say, okay, this is my journey. I know this is going to be great. And just what's the next step? And
right,
because most people, they have this idea of how it's all going to pan out. And so they're constantly condemning themselves for being on the wrong journey when they're actually on the right journey. It's just taking a different route.
right.
You agree with that?
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I was once told this, and it when I actually figured out what it meant, it made complete sense. It said that your journey of life, you might go to the left and the right and up and down and all around, but at any time, if you turn around, the line is straight behind you.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, I see that.
And that kind of aligns with what you're saying,
Yeah,
because you're always going where you're meant to be going.
right,
Whether you think you're diverting or going the wrong way, you're actually not.
right.
So, you know what I mean?
Yes, I do, and I love that. Um, to me, it's a really cool thing when I'm thinking about the things that happen in my life and what my lessons are that I've gotten from it. And sometimes that's a difficult thing to think about, trying to figure out what the benefit of it is, because it's like in the moment, it's like there can't be a benefit to this. But then when you can kind of just take a step back and say, okay, this is what happened. And let me just figure out where it's leading, where it's taking me, and just be sincere thinking about the process and knowing that it's all working out for me and in my favor, right? So it's like the universe, God, it conspires to make us better all the time. And so sometimes those lessons can be hard. And I'll just share a quick story. When years ago, I used to number my things that would happen in my life. So I'd say, okay, something big happened. I'd say, oh, that was life lesson number 205470, whatever. I'd just give it a random number. But if it was just a little thing, I would say, oh, that was life lesson number 56. And so some reason that made me feel better to give it a number, which meant it didn't have any power to me for whatever reason. It felt like it just gave it dissected it in a way to where it didn't have any power at all. It was just a number. And that used to really, really make me feel a lot better.
I like that.
Yeah.
I
So
like
from here on out, you can just give your things that come up random numbers.
There you go.
That's it.
Works.
And I will still do it every now and then. It's always a life lesson, though. It's a life lesson.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what are you doing now?
What am I doing now? I just launched my Healing Whisper
Oh
business
yeah, I remember seeing that. That's so
the
exciting.
beginning of June.
Hmm.
So, that's been exciting, but very overwhelming just because trying to, like I was saying earlier, technology is a lot more, even though there's a lot more tools that make it easier, making everything work. I'm used to, and I'm going to sound really old, like going to a networking event in person with people, talking on the telephone, yes, sending emails, but everything's so digital now that it's just a learning curve,
It
essentially.
is. It
And it's
is.
a lot of pieces to kind of bring together. So um I'm kind of been just getting my feet wet and connecting in different groups, the group that you invited me to, which has been amazing. Do your
Mhm.
thing.
Mhm.
The thing, excuse me. And your stand up and stand out. And, just connecting with people and learning and, playing around with different technologies to kind of figure out what works, and also kind of trying to figure out all that I want to offer. Um,
Mhm.
but I do basically what I am is a cancer mindset coach for,
Mhm.
and I've just, I just want to help. I just want to serve. I want to utilize what I've been through and how I've coped and managed and healed from it with other people that have or are, have gone through this as well. Because I didn't have, I mean, yes, I had people that introduced me to these alternative therapies, but I didn't have someone who I could sit down and talk to, who could, provide me with energy therapy or PMF, or, just coaching itself, but
Mhm.
also sharing how much mindset makes a difference, how much mindset, and where your mindset is, how that can heal or not.
Yeah.
Uh, and I feel like there's so many wonderful, amazing cancer coaches out there, but I don't see a lot that do specifically mindset. I'm not saying they don't touch on that, but it's the wellness piece of it, that what are you eating and exercise, and dealing with certain side effects or just different things, which are all extremely important. um but sometimes I feel like there's that elephant in the room, in a sense, sometimes, in that being mindset, like people, and me included, you you just get so caught up in, well, I'm feeling this, my body's has this experience, I need to go to the doctor, or I need to find someone who can help me, or I need to find a supplement, or I need to do this. And those are all important, but where's your mindset? Because your mindset's feeding those, feeding your emotions, which are affecting your body,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So, I just want to be able to help
Yeah.
and offer that to people. So what I have determined, um, is that I want to be working specifically with women that are in remission, and what they're dealing with and how I can help them.
Yeah. I like that. You know, as you're talking about some of that, mindset is everything in our lives, right? And just like we were talking earlier about, things happen for us and not to us, there are so many people that as soon as they hear the word, the phrase, you've got cancer, they just kind of like, well, might as well go ahead and concede with that I'm not going to live long.
Mhm.
And the thing that I wish so many doctors would do first is get a touch with what their mindset is, and maybe help them to start looking at things a little bit different before they even get the diagnosis, because it's not going to hit them the same way. It's just like when somebody, and I talked about this the other day too, when you're in a group of people and everybody's laughing and talking and everything, but one person, you look at them and you think, I don't know, do they feel okay? They might look a little pale. And you keep it to yourself, they're going to be fine. But if you start talking about it, and then suddenly they'll start feeling all those things that maybe they weren't feeling before, because you put that in their mind. And so the mindset, I think, is the ultimate importance, because just like a lot of medicines, there's the placebo effect, that some medicines, they cure whatever it is and they didn't even get the friggin' medicine. So it's not the medicine that typically is the curing thing. It is the mindset about that medicine. And then you don't even have the side effects of the medicine. So there's so much to be said for um, exercising your mind with how to look at things differently, right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because I actually wrote this ebook and it's entitled A Healed Mind Heals the Body,
Yeah.
because it truly does, like what you're talking about. It's when you don't when your mindset is, let's just say, in a negative space for whatever reason, you can't see anything positive.
Right.
And it kind of like creates almost like a shroud around you. And it's just
Like
heavy.
Pigpen.
Yeah.
Pigpen and the the
Right.
Snoopy, Charlie Brown era.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I loved him.
Yeah,
He was
yeah. That's what it makes me think of when
yeah.
somebody has a really negative attitude. It's kind of permeating around them and it's being sprinkled on everybody that they come in contact with, right? But
Exactly.
if you turn that around to where it's a positive thing, that's being sprinkled out too. So I love thinking about Pigpen and when I'm thinking about all this stuff.
I love Charlie Brown.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. That was the first characters that I ever drew when I was little.
Oh, nice. Well, my brother, when he was young, that's what my dad called him, was Charlie Brown. And I thought, does that mean he's an outcast? Does that mean what does
Oh,
that mean? But he did. Yeah, I think it was he's just cute, but
yeah. Yeah, a little bald head with one little
he
hair.
he did after a while. When he was born, he had tons of hair, but you know how all babies tend to lose it all and then it comes back. But yeah, it's kind of thin now. He's a little bit older. I won't tell him that I told anybody about him being Charlie Brown. Maybe
Well,
he won't listen to this one.
yeah.
He
we
would be
we don't
mortified.
we love Charlie Brown, so
That's all right. That's all right. So,
we're just speaking from love.
so when we're getting close to time, and
Yes.
so one of the things that I want to let everybody that's watching or listening to know is that when I post this and I publish this, then I'll have a list of the different places that we can connect. Anybody can reach out and connect with you. And
Okay.
so if you want to, you could tell where they can reach you now, and then I will have it in the description. So if they want to look at the description and get the information, they can, or if they would just want to listen and write it down.
Okay. Um, I'm I have a website that's www.healingwhisper.com.
Okay.
Um, I have an Instagram page that's also Healing Whisper. And my email is heather@healingwhisper.com.
So why the difference in how the spelling of whisper?
So when I named it, how I feel that intuition speaks to you is through a whisper. And
Mm-hmm.
so a lot of times we're so busy in our lives and we get so caught up in our thoughts running that we miss the whisper. And
Mm-hmm.
that can be in any area of your life. And so as you miss the whisper gets louder and louder and louder. And once it's a shout, now whatever you've not been dealing with or not been listening to now has manifested physically,
Yeah.
right?
I call
So
that's when the
that
baseball bat comes out.
exactly the whisper, but the PUR, it's spelled that way because when I'm an animal lover. I have cats, and when they purr, it's actually known that biologically that purr is like puts your body into like a meditative state
Mm-hmm.
energetically. So that's why it's spelled PUR, because it's creating that meditative calm space and
Nice.
allowing you to hear that whisper before it becomes a shout.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I love it. For me, it was like I would tell everybody all the time that it's a little whisper, and then it gets a little louder and a little bit louder, and then becomes a shout. And if you're still not listening, out comes the baseball bat. And that's when you get the diagnosis of this horrible thing, or you're in the car wreck, or you lose all your money, or whatever it is, that we usually
Yes.
get indicators early on that we ignore. So my thing is, I really want to help people to dive into their intuition and start trusting it, so that when they think that something's, maybe I need to pay attention to that, they don't just discredit it. They will
Yeah.
actually listen to it and do something then.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm right there with you. I
That's
agree.
right. That's right. So thank you so much for being here today. And just to be in your presence, I can feel the energy from you. And I love it. You have got such an amazing smile and such an amazing spirit about you. So I know why, all the things that you were saying about why you're here and what your gifts and talents are. I know why God, the universe, kept you around. And not to say that anybody that has a bad experience with cancer, that they weren't valuable. I'm just saying for you, it feels like you have this mission, and, you know, it's happening.
It's happening. Yes,
That's
it is.
right. That's
Thank
right.
you so much. This has been
My
great.
pleasure. So I'm gonna leave with my favorite quote, and I still, just to be honest with everybody, I still don't know who said it. I've heard several different people tell me different things, so I still haven't looked it up. I hate to admit, but anyway, the best way to predict the future is create it,
Mm.
and I love that. So as I say goodbye to everybody, I just want to ask you, what are you creating?